What's up, guys? Welcome to the Outer Nexus. Tonight, we are going to get into the major geopolitical shift in U.S. Middle East relations with the Saudi investment conference, the news from that, and the controversy over the $400 million jet that Qatar is giving to Trump to replace with Air Force One. And let's see how Qatar coax Trump over there. Let's see how they get him over there with one of these bad boys. Apparently, Qatar invented McDonald's on a semi truck just to get Trump over there.
This was captured by a journalist with I-24. Now, a mobile McDonald's rolled in for the president's visit, allowing him to take his fast food to go. This is over in Saudi Arabia. Saudi officials say the McDonald's on wheels was personally made for President Trump to use during that trip. However, it's not clear if he made a pit stop to the mobile restaurant. The video has been shared hundreds of.
So we don't even know. We don't even know if he used it,
No.
but it was clarified there specifically that, I
Made
mean,
for
that like he's not just getting a $400 million jet out of this deal. Qatar specifically made him a McDonald's semi-trailer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I think that was Qatar, wasn't it?
No, they said Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Saudi Arabia. Okay. All right. Well, either one.
Yeah.
Either way. Because it says Qatar right there. I thought
Yeah.
they were talking about Qatar. But either way, I feel like that's how they got him over there, is with one of those trailers. But he's apparently he has a radical new shift for the Middle East. He announced, I don't know if he announced at the Saudi Arabian conference, but it's heavily implied that the reason why it's going so well is that he is going to announce the deal to have Israel go back to the 1967 borders for Israel Palestine.
I am not sure on that one.
Yeah.
You know, I do, because the main focus of the whole thing, for the most part, was at least that we know of.
Yeah.
Because again, there are things in the background going on that we don't have access to. No one has access to. But
yeah.
Is that, it's supposed to be a investment front for both countries.
Yeah, but we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah.
Right now, let's check out this weird, plane gift from Qatar, which I think is really unusual. It feels like a lot of Trojan horses going on. The McDonald's semi-trailer, this $400 million plane. He says that, this NPR article, Trump says he'd be stupid to turn down Qatar's offer of a new plane.
Yeah.
President Trump on Monday scoffed at concerns raised about Qatar's offer to replace Air Force One with a luxury Boeing 747, calling it a nice gesture that would be stupid to turn down. The offer, which was first reported by ABC News, comes on the eve of Trump's visit to the Middle East. The president is scheduled to visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. It would be one of the biggest foreign gifts ever received by the U.S. government and raises legal and ethical questions.
Yes.
What do you think about this whole debacle? I think it's weird.
That last sentence kind of sums up a good chunk of it, the legal and ethical ramifications of it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's one of those things where it's, again, like a $400 million gift.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia and, a lot of Arabian princes, Qatar included to some degree, are known for their lavish gifts.
That's the thing.
But this is kind of
over the top
even for that. And it starts being like, where's the line between a gift and a bribe?
Yeah.
And then the other question, and the reason I don't think it should be accepted.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I understand a $400 million gift, dumb to not accept. It's $400 million worth of plane.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. But it's Air Force One.
It's Air Force One. That's the other thing with this. It's like really like full Trojan horsing this shit.
You would have, in order to be used as Air Force One, every single inch of wiring on that
Yeah.
entire plane would have to be gone over
Completely
to make
inspected.
sure that there are no bugs or
Yeah.
anything that are supposed. Yeah,
I can't see it possibly being cleared to be used for Air Force One.
that's
But
why. Yeah,
maybe Air Force Two or something. I don't know. But either way, what you were saying is accurate. Like my question for all this, hypothetically, if Biden was in a similar position, or even just another random president, do you think Qatar would be giving them a $400 million plane?
not the Bidens,
No.
but yeah,
So the angle of this that I'm wondering about is basically how Trump is dealing with the Middle East, and he wore a purple tie to his speech at the Saudi Arabian Investments Conference, and it was noted that it's very rare that he wears a purple tie, if ever. I don't think there's ever an image of him wearing a purple tie.
I can't.
And he
pull one up.
was wearing
Yeah.
a bright purple tie at the Saudi Arabian Investment Conference. And I think the angle is he's leaning into the royalty factor here.
Yeah.
He's because these are all kingdoms. These are all kingdoms with royalty and all that,
Yeah.
and I think he just realizes that this is how you work with these people. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, like,
It's kind of how it works.
to some degree, he's worked with them before.
Yeah.
And there is a way that you deal with, high ranking officials, especially monarchs,
Yeah.
and high ranking business magnates.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what he was kind of aiming for. And in fact, in a speech at one point, he said,
Yeah.
I have a similar pattern of thinking as the people in the first three rows here,
Mhm.
referring to, again, high level officials, high level business magnates.
Yeah.
And then he even kind of, which I thought was in a way rude, he's like, compared to the people, behind the third row.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I was a little
Yeah.
like, really, you're gonna take a shot like that? But yeah, they did, he did make that distinction, and I think that's what he was aiming for.
But another interesting thing that he took a shot at in the speech that he gave with Riyadh is he really put neocons on blast.
Yes.
The idea that, and he brought up specifically that regime change does not work. The neocons have tried regime change in these regions for decades that have just led to total destruction. And he clarified that it looks like the Arabian way is the way to go.
Well, in my opinion, for any of these things, because we have done regime change, we've done it plenty of times, and it's been done even internally, like through war strife within these countries themselves, where they've killed a previous leader and now someone else is in charge.
Yeah.
Instead of the CIA killing the leader and we put someone in charge.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, for any of these countries and most countries, peace is only ever going to come from within.
From within.
They have to make the changes that will result in peace.
And I think that is what Trump was trying to get at with this, is that the regime change broadly is not going to work the way. We can't just go in there and say this is how things should work because it looks like it's not working over. It needs to come from within. I think his statement, the Arabian way, is the way to go, or however he said that, that's representative of the old guard, our old regime change guard needing to go away.
Yes.
And us taking our hands off of the throat of the Middle East.
Yes. And in a way, it kind of will signal that. I mean, one of Saudi Arabia's biggest hits, and this is kind of leading into one of the other things we were going to talk about, is Khashoggi.
Oh yeah, Khashoggi, right?
And
there's problems with that.
There are, and the last big investigation that was done into that was done by the CIA.
Yes,
the CIA did the investigation, and their findings found that it was the Saudi, prince that was had him killed.
Yes.
So this is a kind of a turning point on there too, because this is now the president coming out and being like, we're still going to.
We're gonna back this. And I don't know if there's many options for that environment, that kind of diplomatic environment, you know, because the angle that they're trying to take is they do not support the Iranian regime. So they are going to try to bolster the rest of the Muslim world, the rest of the Islamic world, to essentially turn them against Iran. And honestly, if this is, and especially with him meeting with the interim president of Syria as well, it basically, it not only puts all of the allies on Trump's page, but also it really takes a jab at Israel as well. Because part of this deal, like we were saying, is reinstating the borders from 1967. Let me see if I could pull this up here. Basically, if Saudi Arabia was to have its way, which is what the implication here is, it's implied that they have made this deal, then Palestine will become its own state, in where that West Bank is, and I guess they're getting Gaza back too, but I'm not really sure about that. But either way, that is going to represent a very, very large shift in how these countries interact with each other over there. And I think it'll appease a lot of players over there as well. It'll cool off a lot of jets, but it'll also make a lot of defense contractors kind of miffed, probably.
It probably will.
They won't be able to perpetuate their oil wars.
Yeah.
Because part of this, and I think this is why they're kind of sweeping Khashoggi under the rug, is because Saudi Arabia, it's not, you know, you can't just murder a journalist and say you're going to turn a new leaf. But it seems like Saudi Arabia is really trying to put their best foot forward in terms of diversifying their energy production. They don't want to be focused on oil anymore. No. They want to have new types of energy. They want to embrace technology. And that is the main, like, core mission of the White House also, which is why they're saying that this is going to draw White House and Saudi ties to the next level, because the mission of embracing technology is the same, and also nuclear dearmament. You know, it seems like some sort of deal has been reached there, or at the very least, maybe this administration trusts the Saudis more. But you know, we know how Saudi Arabia is.
Well, there's a lot to be said for the deal.
Yeah.
One of the main things that, like you said, that they're kind of going for is they want. Well, we have this video here for the White House announces 1.2 trillion in economic commitment with Qatar, including the significant Boeing order.
Oh yeah, but what were you gonna say?
But no, yeah, there's plenty in there that the deal is supposed to go over.
Yeah.
But one of the main things that's being talked about on the other side, for this deal is that about 50-ish. I've seen conservative down to, you know, as low as 40. I've seen up to 60% of the deal, the $600 million or the trillion, depending on how it's looked at. Was already part of commitments.
That they made in like 2017.
Yeah, other commitments. So even though it sounds like a huge number, a good chunk of it was already in play.
Yeah.
So this was just to make it sound bigger. However, one of the main points that was added, and it was about 150 to 200 billion dollars worth, was the entire new weapons section of this deal, which is where you also heard Donald Trump coming out and being like, you know, we have the best of everything when it comes to
exactly.
And that's why he was mentioning that, is because now we are basically going to be taking Saudi Arabia's military and bolstering it with our own.
Right. And that it continues to raise ethical and moral questions. Like, we're basically picking Saudi Arabia as the horse that we want to win, and we're we're going to buff them. We're going to
Yes.
give them a bunch of resources,
Yep.
And it's like, is this, are we heading towards world peace with this? Are we actually solving problems with this, or are we about to fund new wars, different contexts of wars?
Well,
like we weren't real. I mean, we were expecting India, Pakistan to happen, but not in the way that it did, kind of.
Well, here's the thing, and I know this is going to be unpopular, but I've always thought that the wars out there again would have to be fought internally between them.
Yeah.
The countries that are involved have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we have been backing Israel for a long time.
Yes.
A thing that I've not agreed with, and it's not because of Israel, it's just because it's like, why them over someone else?
Yeah.
And we've been backing them for a long time with a lot of money.
A lot. Like $39 billion a year.
Yeah. And
to Israel.
And not only that, they were basically ungrateful for it.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even want the money at points, and we were still giving it to them.
Yeah.
And with all that money, what did we get? Like where did that conflict actually end up? So I am hoping that through the investments here with Saudi Arabia and their buff, like you said, to their military, that they will be able to end these conflicts in a way that you expect a country to end conflicts. Like they have a military force. When something happens that is obvious, like that should be happening here, they go and fix the problem. Not the US, not outside forces. Saudi Arabia fixes it.
I mean, and they're saying that they want part of this deal, part of it, and it's what you were talking about, this deal that was made in 2017 with the technology, that the 1967 borders were part of that deal.
Yes.
So again, if that goes through, what Trump is saying is a West Bank Palestinian state without Hamas.
Yeah.
So this proxy war in Israel between Palestine and whoever else, Israel's definitely at fault also, but it feels like there's multiple different terrorist factions happening in that conflict, and I guess this could be a way to police that, sort of, is to have Saudi Arabia go in there and, mediate it in a way.
And basically be the mediator and finish certain things when it has to be done that way.
Yeah.
It's horrible to say in a lot of ways, but you do need someone who will
do it.
Who will do it in the end. Like, yes, we need this to end. We don't need this to continue. We need this to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very fascinating, and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. Like I was saying before, they really want to diversify their technology. I know Saudi Arabia, basically they want to turn their landscape green,
Yes, they want to be a hub specifically for technology, big world events, and like green, island, because they're investing again in islands, and all that kind of. They want people to come to their country and be like, wow, like there's advanced technologies here that you don't see many other places, and things to do. And again, even in that same light, one of the things that Khashoggi kind of was really hitting on was, women should be treated better. They should have, and actually, the prince has come out in that same vein and has said, we actually do need to start loosening these screws so that we conform at least a little bit more to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and that's what's most interesting about this, in my opinion, even though it is the King Mohammed bin Salman, he was the guy accused of murdering Khashoggi. He seems to be a lot more progressive than other Islamic caliphates. Is that the term for them? Leaders.
Leaders.
He seems to be a lot more progressive in that regard. And this is kind of what I was thinking was going to happen to the Muslim world after many years, after many decades, is the overtaking of the internet.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems like we are hitting that point in the Muslim world. Is the internet has reached enough people that enough of them have become progressive enough that they don't really want to cling to these old conflicts anymore. They don't want to do things the old way anymore. They want to, you know,
Well, I wouldn't go entirely that far,
yeah,
but it is a loosening.
it's a loosening.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
like the laws that they have that like women can't drive on their own.
Yeah.
You have to keep watch of them when they're out.
Yeah.
Those are the types of laws that he's specifically targeting right now.
Yeah.
He wants like the women in employment
Yeah.
to go from where it is right now at like 15%.
Yeah.
He wants to see that in about 4 years go up to about 30%.
Yeah.
And he will, they kind of want to see that number start rising
Yeah.
to somewhere around where the rest of the world may be.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to see where this is going to go. I'll just throw this in also because I didn't get to this, but I thought this was interesting. And there's also questions with this, you know, the $400 million jet, but also Elon is apparently supplying the Qatari Guard with Cybertrucks, and they already have the Cybertrucks dolled up with the Qatari symbols and everything. Check this out. This is the Qatari. I don't know what the name of their military is, escorting the president, and they already have Cybertrucks with the red Cybertrucks with the Qatari logo on them.
Yep.
Which is like, so like it raises a lot of questions of like,
Just a couple.
like what, like, is Elon, are they just are these just a bunch of billionaires cutting deals with each other? A bunch of billionaires cutting deals with trillionaires? Is that what's going on over there?
Well, that's always kind of been the question that has.
Yeah.
And in a way, yes, that's exactly what it is. When we saw Trump's speech,
Yeah.
the way the camera was angled made it on the king.
Yeah.
Was who was sitting right behind the king, the way that camera was angled.
Yeah.
It was Elon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was purposeful.
Yeah.
Obviously.
This is like some weird Marvel movie shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like the new plot is Elon is the secret bad guy or something.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go.
I'm not saying that, but it's like this is what you would see in a Marvel movie where Elon is secretly the bad guy. He's supplying some rival state with his own things.
Yeah.
It's like a plot point out of a shitty movie.
And that is one of the things that you're seeing here. And
Yeah.
one of the things people were worried about was that like Elon is going to use his position to sell a country a bunch of e-trucks and and yes, that's what happened.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world. Technically a couple of trucks here and there isn't really business in a lot of ways, but the fact that you're seeing it and it's meant to evoke they've been doing
well, yeah, part of that is like a Cybertruck is not a fucking military vehicle. It is not capable for military function. So the only reason you would dial them up like that is for show, is to send a message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the message, is that this is the new world order.
We're on board. That was the message.
That was the message. Is this is it? This is the new world order, and this is how things are going now.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. Things with China and Ukraine seem to have stabilized a little bit. It seems like Ukraine they're coming to close in on a deal. And the China tariff situation, it seems like that has eased off temporarily, but I think that was the plan the whole time.
Here's the thing. I think the temporary hold is more to allow us certain deals and to also inspect what has happened since we put them in place.
Yes.
And if it's shown that it's beneficial for us, the US, they'll go back.
Yeah.
So I do think there is a good chance that they go back because China was not doing well under the tariffs.
Yeah.
And China's number one goal is for you to know that they weren't not doing that. They were doing just fine with the tariffs. They were not.
Yeah.
And because that's the one thing that they need right now, because they had two sides to their economy.
Yeah.
They had the side with all of the real estate deals. That's a good chunk of their economy, about half. And then trading.
Yeah.
And trading was all that they had. And then you put tariffs on that, and now all of a sudden that's hit super hard. They could not deal with it much longer. And I think this is just kind of to show that was a power move by Trump to basically, and now he's putting it on hold, like either make deals now or they go back.
So I mostly disagree with that. I think that was the goal the whole time, is to get them basically down to that level. And now China is just going to wait out the 3 months and act like nothing happened, and those tariffs are just going to stay in place. That is my opinion on the Chinese mindset for that.
Yeah,
I think they're going to try to downplay it as much as possible and then just roll with it, and that's it. That's my opinion, though. But it seems like these things are all clearing up, along with this push against the Iranian regime, especially from the younger people inside Iran. Maybe we could really be seeing a brand new world order,
in a way. Yeah.
I
mean, at least through the Middle East, I do think we're going to start seeing a lot of big changes. And they would be, it looks like welcome changes.
It does. I think that's what we're going to call it there. Like and subscribe, guys. We'll see you again next time.